It's the second week of October 2025. I'm Dave. I'm here with Andrew. We are very relieved to hear that Dolly Parton isn't as sick as people feared. And today we're talking about Rolling Stone's new list of the best songs of this century, the fest I'm going to this weekend, Mobb Deep, and more. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, what's up, Dave?
So we're recording this on like Thursday afternoon. In just a few hours, I'm getting on a plane to Vegas for this year's Best Friends Forever festival, which is way more on brand for you, but you have yet to go, and this will be my second year.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm jealous that you'll now have gone to both years and I've still never gone.
Yeah, but I do need some advice. Who should I see?
Well, I guess outside of the more obvious ones, you know who you should definitely not miss is Marietta. I don't know if you saw any footage of the reunion show they just played at the church in Philly.
I have not.
It looked nuts. Like, I'll be honest, like, I didn't even realize how big this band got in the time since they broke up. But they're billed really high at Best Friends Forever, actually. So the bookers there probably had an inkling. But yeah, it looked awesome. Place was packed. I saw footage of the Sinclair in Cambridge from, I think, the next night or something too. And again, packed. People bouncing around knowing all the words. They were like a early 2010s, like emo revival band. Close with modern baseball. They put out a split together. And yeah, I think this would be the set that maybe you wouldn't expect to go as hard as it's going to go. So don't miss Marietta.
Yeah, I won't. Well, all right. So I should note that at this fest, you don't actually have to miss anybody unless you decide to miss somebody, because there's no overlapping sets, 2 stages. It's like band. It's nonstop. So if you can handle it, you can see like from early afternoon until late at night, nonstop bands. But yeah, for sure. I will check out Marietta. Hopefully they make it. They just canceled some shows, actually.
Oh, I actually missed that. Well, hopefully they make it.
They posted this week that they weren't feeling well and they had to postpone their last 2 shows to make sure that they were well enough to play Vegas.
Okay, so good. That's good news.
Yeah.
So yeah,
hopefully they do become well enough.
So definitely catch them. And I don't want to date you or anything, but I have a feeling you don't need me to recommend you any 90s bands. But for the sort of emo revival era, I would also say, I know you said you're going to probably catch everyone anyway, but Empire, and Snowing, I think, are unmissable sets that are a little lower in the font, possibly less obvious. So
yeah, I think Empire is already up there as a set I'm really excited about. Nice. And as well as everybody I'm going with, we all were kind of like missed Empire, if you want to say, like, for lack of a better term, we all missed them in real time. And it's definitely been one of those bands on listening and getting excited for the fest where everybody is super psyched. And they, unlike Marietta, who are playing the same day, are billed really low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was definitely like, oh, they're billed lower than I would think, which is too bad. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a really cool set. I'm very, very excited that they're back. I mean, they definitely were pretty definitive that era for me. And I don't know, I didn't think I'd see the day.
That's going to be an amazing day. That's this Sunday in Vegas. Mm-hmm. That's the day headlined by Jimmy Eat World, but there's Rilo Kiley on there, which is maybe my most anticipated set, possibly, since I missed all the New York City dates. Cursive is playing the Ugly Organ that day. It's Marietta, as you just said. It's also the day Wednesday is playing, who stand out on this fest as like kind of the most currently relevant band on the entire festival.
And like the least emo.
Yeah, exactly. The least emo. A band who's actually touring a new album. Maybe it's like a far away second, but February, who play on Saturday, are maybe the second most kind of currently buzzed band. And I say that partially because almost every other band on the festival are old bands.
It's very nostalgia driven, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, Sunday also has Elliot, which I'm very much looking forward to. Speaking of nostalgia, These Arms Are Snakes, who I also have not, I haven't seen them in like 15 or however many. I haven't seen them since they broke up the first time.
You know who I one more shout out I'll give. Um, I forget if you said this to me privately or on a separate episode of the podcast, but the sort of like Piebald Award from last year. Maybe you can explain what that is. Uh, my money's on Knapsack.
Okay. Yeah. Last year, Piebald, who were perfectly placed right before Get Up Kids on they were on the smaller stage. Get Up Kids were on the big stage. Like I said, there's no overlapping sets. So you already had the whole Get Up Kids crowd there. Get Up Kids were a huge draw last year. And Piebald were like somewhat unexpectedly had this massive crowd on the small stage. Definitely the biggest crowd of the weekend on the small stage. People singing along, people excited. So,
Which makes sense because they are the best, and I think the people who would go to this festival know they're the best. It's the people who wouldn't go to this festival that maybe don't realize.
yeah.
But it sounds like you kind of said like they kind of had they got to be the rock stars that their fans know they can be at this festival.
Yeah, for sure. The Brooklyn show they played right around that same time last year was much smaller and less attended than this kind of epic small stage set at the festival.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, like as far as the sort of optimal timing goes, so Knapsack is right in between Cursive and Mineral. Cursive is playing Domestica. Did you say? Oh wait, they're playing both albums.
Yeah, they're playing on Friday and Sunday.
Wow. Okay, so this is right. They're right in between Cursive playing Domestica and Mineral, which one thing is cool is actually the last time I saw Knapsack was back to back with Mineral at Fun Fest in Austin, and I think they also did an after show together. So it was kind of like that was like the era when all those 90s emo bands were first coming back, and Mineral and Knapsack back to back was like such a thing. The bands talked about it on stage. But yeah, so it feels like they're back with Mineral, and they're also just sandwiched right in between Mineral and Cursive. Like, who's gonna leave? So I think it's the optimal time for those Knapsack songs that should have been hits to feel like they were actually hits.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. Mineral Mineral really up there. Top set that I am excited for. And that's tomorrow. That's today if you're listening.
Yeah, I can't believe they're that this is goodbye for them, but you know, goodbye isn't always goodbye. So let's hope it's
They are billing the Best Friends Forever set as a farewell set. They're playing two shows at the festival. One which is like a pre-show that sold out very quickly, only to kind of a higher price ticket for the fest. But then they also played one or two Austin shows before.
Yeah, including a surprise $5 show under a fake name this past weekend.
Yeah, I haven't heard how that went.
Me neither, but sounds very Fugazi of them, so I'm about it.
So any last recommendations before we move on?
I mean the whole lineup, but outside of that, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, so last week we were talking about Geese, and I mentioned how it was reminding me of Clap Your Hands Say Yeah and Arcade Fire Hype days, and how David Byrne coming out and David Bowie coming out. So it figured out the exact timeline because we were a little confused. David Byrne actually came out with Arcade Fire in February 2005, which was just months before he showed up in the crowd of the Clap Your Hands Say Yeah show at South Street Seaport, which was then a month before David Bowie then came out with Arcade Fire at Summer Stage. So those were kind of the order of those things happen. All that 2005 year, which was also BrooklynVegan's second year of existence. It was a fun time. Oh, one other correction from last week. I talked about Cameron Winter having played Carnegie Hall. That show actually has not happened yet. All the hype of it getting announced and selling out happened, but there's still a chance for those that want to go. So, yeah, and speaking of upcoming shows, that Grizzly Bear tour is about to start. Excited for that. It's been forever since Grizzly Bear played shows, and they're playing like 4 or 5 nights in New York City. They have shows in other cities as well, and there's like different openers. This is Lorelai's opening one of the New York shows, which is my first choice but unfortunately I cannot go that night. But they also just announced something else special for a few of the shows, which is that Victoria Legrand of Beach House, who back in the day played with Grizzly Bear a bunch. Either I remember when Beach House was opening for Grizzly Bear, maybe then the opposite happened. I don't know. But then Victoria will be showing up to play with Grizzly Bear at a few of the shows. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that is really, really awesome. I may have said this before, but I think Grizzly Bear's live show is almost underrated and very unmissable. And I hope that now that they're back, if anybody actually hasn't seen them yet, that they take this opportunity because it's really something special. Meanwhile, this tour comes just in time for Rolling Stone to say that neither Grizzly Bear nor Beach House have made one of the 250 best songs of the 21st century so far. I thought 2 weeks might have been on there, but nope, no luck for Grizzly Bear or Beach House.
Yeah, so they just released this list of 250 songs, but it makes sense. I mean, how could Grizzly Bear be on there when Taylor Swift took up 230 of the spots? But seriously, it's Rolling Stone. Maybe they released that list just to change the narrative a little bit. Days earlier, Taylor Swift's new album came out. You may have heard, and just everybody's talking about how Rolling Stone is like maybe loves the Taylor Swift album a bit too much.
I mean, not just the album, but it's like Rolling Stone became a Taylor Swift fan site for 24 hours, or at least, but yeah, it was, they had a whole big takeover. It was kind of nuts. Their 5 stars out of 5 out of 5 star review went up like alongside the album's release onto streaming services. Taylor tweeted their review instantly, the website had a whole takeover. There were all these different articles about the album. Like it was just like content overload.
Including all 286 of Taylor Swift's songs ranked by, of course, their resident Swiftie, Rob Sheffield. Though I realize that
one of their resident Swifties, to be fair.
Okay. Yeah. I do think that, yeah, I mean, we know that article actually is something they update every time she comes out with a new album. So now it's up to 286 songs, which is, 30, what's the math? 36 more than the 250 best of the century.
Right. And yeah, and the number one on that list was in fact the highest ranked Taylor song on the list, but otherwise the other 3 Taylor songs that did make the list, only four made it, were different than the top 4. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting because you have this, you have Rolling Stone going really hard on the record, 5 out of 5, perfect score. It wasn't the only perfect score review. It was definitely the one that got talked about the most on social media that I saw, but not the only one. But there were also like some serious pans, I mean, Pitchfork trashed it. The Alternative put up a pretty brutal pan. And then I've just seen a lot of talk on social media of just like lots and lots of deep like really bashing the record. And it's funny because like I saw a tweet that was like it was said something like, I feel like the most controversial take you could have is that the album is pretty good. And it does feel that way. Like it seems like you either need to be like another masterpiece from our generation's genius, or you need to be like, Taylor has fully fallen off. This is totally a flop, huge dud. She's completely lost it. And yeah, I don't know. I personally fall so kind of honestly somewhere more in the middle. I mean, I think it has, it's a tight, catchy 12-song record, which is nice because the last album, which was like surprise a double album the day later, was just it. I feel like the longest thing in the world and totally unnecessary to be that long. And it just had like no songs that you could just play on the radio. And so it's kind of nice to get a tight, it's with Max Martin again, who did her poppy albums, and it has some horrible lyrics, definitely. And personally, I don't like the era of Taylor Swift that thinks she's Shakespeare. I think all the flowery language stuff is hurting her songwriting, not making her smarter. But yeah, I mean, some of the tracks are really catchy. And I think when we get out of the era, the instant sort of reaction period of, is it amazing or is it a huge flop? I think some of those songs might have legs and we might hear them more. And, we know sometimes Taylor songs can be sleeper hits like Cruel Summer, which is on Rolling Stone's new list. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a perfect record at all, but I also don't know that I think it's as much of a flop or a dud as people want it to be.
Well, in case anyone's worried about Taylor, even before the week was over, it was already announced that the album has got another world record, which is that it has sold more than any album ever in history already in its first week, breaking Adele's record. So,
And people are quick to point out that there's like 27 different variants of the album. And is it breaking records because people want to own all these different versions? And it's like, and I don't just mean like color vinyl variants. It's like there's like these different editions that are all out like immediately. And that's become kind of a norm for her. It's something that she gets a lot of flack for on social media. But then there's other people being like, so you're criticizing Taylor for building a fan base who wants to actually buy physical music? So I don't know. It's impossible to know where to stand, but worth mentioning, I guess, that yes, she broke that record, but maybe the sales are inflated by cultivating a fan base that treats these different like versions of her albums as sort of like collector's items. So maybe it's not apples to apples for just like this many people wanted to own this Adele record. Who's to say?
so looking at that Rolling Stone top 10, well, looking at all 250, but the top 10 specifically, Taylor is in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Should we just read through the top 10 real quick?
Yeah, for those who haven't seen it yet, number 10, Frank Ocean, Thinking About You. Great choice. Number 9, Britney Spears, Toxic. Number 8, Radiohead, Idiotech. 7, Kendrick Lamar, All Right. 6, Robin, Dancing on My Own. 5, Taylor Swift, All Too Well. 4, The White Stripes, Seven Nation Army. 3, Beyonce and Jay-Z, Crazy in Love. 2, Yeah Yeah Yeah's Maps. And at number 1, they have Missy Elliott, Get Your Freak On.
I do like the idea that Missy Elliott tops the list of the best songs of the first quarter of the century. I actually think Work It would have been my pick, but I do like to see Missy Elliott there. I think hard to argue with that and hard to feel negative about that.
Do you approve of the Radiohead choice?
Yeah, I mean, I do think Idiotech has kind of emerged as the favorite of that era for Radiohead, and I would definitely want it to be a song from Kid A. Like my favorite song is Everything in Its Right Place from that record, but I think Idiotech's probably, it's maybe more of a crowd pleaser. Definitely is, because every time you see them, it's like a highlight of the set. But yeah, I think that pick works for me. The Kendrick pick, honestly, is one I would take more of an issue with, only because I feel like the love for All Right is a little bit inflated by it being sort of positioned as like this culturally important protest song of its era. And I mean, Kendrick himself made an album about like, don't make me your savior. But I just feel like, honestly, that there are just better Kendrick songs. I think All Right is really important, definitely. But it's like becoming the thing where it's almost like when I see Hey Jude as the best Beatles song every time, where I'm like, they have better Beatles songs than Hey Jude. Like I'm kind of feeling that. But I don't feel that way about the White Stripes. I do think Seven Nation Army deserves to be the number one White Stripes song every time. I think it's cool that Jack White officially has a guitar riff that is in the same guitar riff canon as like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and all the bands that wrote those, or like Smoke on the Water. Like it's just like, if you're learning guitar, you're probably learning Seven Nation Army in the first like 4 or 5 riffs that you learn. So yeah, I don't know. That song is not outplayed somehow. I mean, we talked about you seeing Jack play it recently and it being a huge banger.
Very true.
I don't think Maps is my favorite Yeah Yeah song. I do get why it's always on top. I actually don't like how it's like not very indicative of their sound. I feel like it like you hear it and you're like, oh, I love this, and then you hear the rest of that album in particular, and you're like either way more into it or not into it at all. And Toxic by Britney Spears has to be there. I love seeing that, honestly. I would say I was Robin in the top 10. Awesome. Um, I would say though, the last thing I'll say about the top 10, I feel like we've come far enough that Crazy in Love does not have to be Beyonce's best song. I mean, her 2016 album Lemonade did top the album list that Rolling Stone put out earlier this year of the top 250 albums of the 21st century so far. I mean, I just feel like peak Beyonce has actually been her 2010s and 2020s material at this point. So I'm just kind of like, by the end of the 2000s, I get if you're like Crazy in Love, top 10 song of the decade. Now I'm like, aren't there songs that sort of better represent Beyonce's artistry? That's just me, just my 2 cents.
And Beyonce's another one who got more than one list spot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Kendrick was on there a bunch. Taylor, as we said, I forget the rest of the top 10 if there were other, but yeah, it was definitely interesting to see. Like, you know, it did feel like sometimes artists were given one slot, other times, obviously not. But
Yeah, I think they addressed Pitchfork just did this in their best rap list too.
mhm.
But in the intro, they said something like, "We tried to give artists only one slot, but then there's all these exceptions."
Right. I mean, and it, you know, I think it does make sense because it like for example, Work It by Missy Elliott is on the list, you know. And I think it makes sense that if Get Your Freak On is number one, I like that that doesn't mean Work It doesn't make the list at all.
Lord also has two.
Hmm. Should we talk about some of the people that aren't on it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think a real glaring one was Fiona Apple, but she did have Idler Wheel at number 13 on that albums list we talked about, and Extraordinary Machine was at 105. So I don't think Rolling Stone is dissing Fiona or anything, but maybe they just think she has really impactful albums and not necessarily a standalone song. And there were other artists like that too, like Mad Villain, Sturgill Simpson, Sleater-Kinney, that were on the albums list. That I wonder if the thought process was, you know, the song just doesn't stand out as much as Teenage Dirtbag by Wheatus.
Yes. Joanna Newsom also on the album list, but not the song list.
Yeah, and too low on the album list. But let's back up though, actually, from the stuff that's not there. One thing that really stuck out to me was we were wondering, like, you know, because it represents this 25-year period, and it's, I think when you 25 years is a lot, and when you get into this kind of thing, you always think about how do you compare, like, you know, Idiotech by Radiohead, a song you've known for 25 years, to a song that came out last year. And so the highest ranking newest artist, I think, was Chapel Roan at 23 with Pink Pony Club, which feels like it's going to age well. I feel like Pink Pony Club is like officially on the level of, you know,
not high enough.
Sure. I mean, honestly, right. If anything, if they redo this list in 25 years, maybe Chapel Roan is top 10. Who knows? But it is always kind of interesting to see, you know, I think that's one of the harder things to do. I mean, when you look at the top 10, Missy Elliott, Yeah, Yes, Beyonce, White. I mean, 4 of the top 5 are all songs that are 20 plus years old. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, was music just better in the early 2000s, or is the nostalgia for those songs outweighing that maybe there is some stuff from the 2010s and early 2020s that one day tops those songs for, you know, the Rolling Stone writers? But we did notice that some of the bands that we've been most interested in that have been rising lately were not here, like MJ Lenderman, who did come in pretty low on the album list, and Wednesday and Alex G, Wet Leg. There was no Big Thief, who was on the album list. Obviously, no Geese, maybe a little too soon. No Fontaines DC or Idols or Amel and the Sniffers or Mannequin Pussy. So you do have to wonder, like, are those artists going to make a future version? Because, like, they are on the rise.
Yeah. Then meanwhile, you go a few more years back, and there's like on the song list is Phoebe Bridgers, Lucy Dacus, Phoebe and Lucy together as Boy Genius. So each of them actually have 2 spots on the list.
So just 1 spot for Julian Baker then.
Yeah, poor Julian. And one Waxahachie is also on there. So when you have, like, it really does feel like, okay, 5 to 10 years earlier, much better represented by this group.
And then you have like Always and Parquet Courts and Courtney Barnett and Car Seat
Right.
Headrest. Yeah. So it's like, and yeah, I mean, it's easy. It like, I did kind of assume Always Marry Me Archie was going to, or Archie Marry Me was going to be there. But like in 10 years, does Car Seat Headrest still outrank MJ Lenderman? I think, I think it won't, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. You also like the Hold Steady is on there. The Mountain Goats made it. The New Pornographers, Modest Mouse, of course, but Flaming Lips. Um, so yeah, the same question, basically. It's like when you start going back, all these older indie artists
Yeah,
still making
you
it.
get a lot more of the indie rock from like the 2000s, like Arctic
Yeah.
Monkeys, Franz Ferdinand, obviously Killers, Mr. Brightside was really high. Phoenix, MGMT, Vampire Weekend, Broken Social Scene, Arcade Fire, Bon Iver, Fleet Foxes, LCD Sound System. We mentioned EA as in White Stripes in the top 10. There was also Strokes, which was near the top 10 with Last Night, TV on the Radio with Wolf Like Me. So yeah, and it's like, I mean, that was obviously such a heyday for indie rock, and again, this stuff is classic now. But so as I think, when I was kind of thinking about what stuff from the last 10, 15 years that didn't make it, I do kind of wonder too if part of that has to do with there being less consensus maybe in the past 10, 15 years than the decade prior. Like it feels like there's a lot of more like scattered scenes and genres, and maybe like it's specifically in the realm of like non-mainstream rock music. Whereas, by the end of the 2000s, a lot of those indie rock artists we're talking about were also just mainstream artists.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a very cool list. I mean, we maybe have said some things that sound critical, but I think that's just the nature of being huge music fans. Obviously, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into making it. We recommend reading it if you haven't, but it's been fun for us to sort of like talk about and think about and be like, what's on it, what's missing, that kind of stuff. So it's always fun to get these lists, even if they always make us instantly jump to, coming up with our own or finding things to point out that it's missing or that it shouldn't have had, etc.
So you actually did make your own list of 10 songs that you think might be on there. So why don't we talk through those?
Yeah, sounds good. It's not in order, but I think right now in 2025, number one song I think is missing is Songs Ohia's Farewell Transmission. I feel like again, there wasn't any MJ Lenderman or Wednesday or, Greg Freeman or any of that kind of like, I guess there was Waxahachie though. So yeah, I mean, Waxahachie and Julian Baker are both have both covered Songs Ohia, but I feel like Farewell Transmission is like the stairway to heaven of sort of the folky or country-ish indie rock uh world, which it kind of has been pretty dominant lately. So like, I don't know. I think that song has already and will continue to go down as like just a total epic, a perfect song of a style of music that continues to grow and have impact. And I think that there's a really good argument that should have been on the list. But I'll keep going though. You mentioned Joanna Newsom. I mean, East was 210 on the albums list. I think that's way too low. We had her 2010 album Have One on Me as the number 2 album of the 2010s at the end of that decade. I'd probably put the Have One on Me title track on this list. I mean, it's a total epic. Again, like similar to Farewell Transmission. I think with having All Too Well by Taylor Swift in the top 10, which is sort of, I don't know if they meant the 10-minute version, but I think that without the 10-minute version, maybe it doesn't end up there regardless, because that song, I think, the 10-minute version, I think really drives home that this is like Taylor Swift at her sort of most epic. Like, they had Green Day's Jesus of Suburbia, which is like Green Day proving they can make like a rock opera in the style of The Who and not just be a pop punk band. There's definitely some precedent for Rolling Stone and other classic rock friendly places to sort of like really favor the epic long song. And I think the title track of Joanna Newsom's Have One on Me is one of those. And also just, I mean, come on. one of the greatest, most unique artists of a generation. I hate to see a list of 250 that doesn't have Red All. I would also say, I think you have to have Hopalong's Tibetan Pop Stars on a list of the best songs of the 21st century so far. I mean, I think you could put that song on a list of like the 10 best indie rock songs of the last 15 years. Painted Shut, which was the album that followed Get Disowned, which was the album Tibetan Pop Stars was on Rolling Stone's album list. So that's very cool. But I mean, Tibetan Pop Stars was like lightning in a bottle. Now, moving on from indie rock, I actually kind of thought we would see Def Heaven's Dream House on the list. There wasn't a lot of metal in general, but I feel like gun to your head, pick a metal song from the last 10, 15 years. I guess more than 10, 15 years. Dream House to me kind of just comes right to the forefront of like that kind of transcends. I thought that should have been there.
Yeah, like you said, almost no metal, no Def Heaven. Just to be clear, actually all 10 songs you chose are by artists that aren't on the list at all.
Right. A couple of them are on the album list, but yeah, these artists in general were all, I didn't want to get into like, oh, it should have been this song, not that song. I went with 10 artists not on the list at all. But yeah, so what metal was on the list?
System of a Down, which of course should have definitely been there.
Yeah.
Mastodon.
Same.
I could have seen that. That could have, for sure. I'm a great addition. I could see them flipping a coin on that one though, given the lack of metal in general. And then if you want to call it metal, Evanescence as well.
I mean, that I think, and then also Linkin Park and Jay-Z.
Right.
Which was interesting. Like, it was interesting that Linkin Park makes it, but only the mashup with Jay-Z.
Right. Johnny Cash was on there with his 9 Inch Nails cover as well.
Right. So that's if that's we're counting that as to make a top 5 metal songs, it's rough for metal.
It's in the dark category.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I do think obviously new metal at one point you would almost think would never make a list like this, and now like it's been sort of so like reappraised and like people appreciate it more. So I think to see System of a Down and Linkin Park on there makes sense. But I also kind of feel like at this point, like given the actually huge impact of new metal and the fact that people don't just blindly hate on it anymore, I would have at least had Slipknot's Duality on the list. I think that's on my 10 because I mean, I think we're going to get into the punk stuff in a minute, but you've got Green Day and Blink-182 there for punk. Like at this point, like I can't think of a more definitive metal band of the last 25 years than Slipknot. They feel like the Iron Maiden of the 21st century. So I thought that was kind of it would have been a nice touch to have some Slipknot on there now that new metal is kind of,
for sure.
But yeah, let's talk about punk. So we only get the sort of everything on the list is very, very, very tip of the iceberg mainstream. And I like every song. It's not a diss, but it's for punk, you have Blink-182 and Green Day. And then I guess for emo, you get Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, My Chemical Romance, Jimmy Eat World's the middle, which is, Jimmy Eat World are like OG and underground enough to play BFF, but the middle obviously is big enough to be in a commercial where Taylor Swift sings along to it. So it's a different side of the band that you're going to see this weekend. And then Paramore. And again, all great bands, but it just feels like, okay, so was it a popularity contest? Like if that's the only, cause like for indie rock, you get to go as deep as, like you said, the Hold Steady, New Pornographers, the Shins, Mountain Goats. Those are like deeper cuts than if you were just like the only indie rock we have is the Strokes, the AAs, and the White Stripes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for pop punk and emo, you just kind of get you get every band that is big enough to headline when we were young, and then Jimmy Eat World because of the middle. And I think given obviously I feel this way, but given the last 15 years of bands in that genre kind of coming up and being part of indie rock and really making a big impact and keeping this music alive and refreshing it for new generation, I think it's a bummer that you only get the ones that made it to the radio in the era of rock radio. So I would have had Joyce Manor's Constant Headache and Title Fight's Head in the Ceiling Fan. I mean, I think Joyce Manor's Constant Headache is just a perfect song. I think Mark Hoppus of Blink-182 would agree with that. He's a fan of them. They're a fan of him. Mark Hoppus also praised Hopalong's Tibetan Pop Stars. Some really high praise for it. And then, yeah, I mean, it's just one of the greatest punk songs of its era. And then I think Title Fight's Head in the Ceiling Fan had such a massive impact. The entire shoegaze thing that is now part of punk and hardcore and stuff like that. Like it almost all dates back to Title Fight putting out Head in the Ceiling Fan. So it's like this is a song that has really like signaled an entire sea change. And I get it. It's not as popular as Drops of Jupiter by Train, or like, whatever else, like whatever other song I could kind of pick on. But I think the impact it had, I don't know. But then actually one more. Turnstile were not on the list at all. They did have Glow On come in at 236 on the album list, which again, it feels low because it's new, like the same way that MJ Lenderman was low, and you have to wonder, is it low because you're waiting to see if it does have the longevity? Because I get that, it's like the opposite of recency bias, I guess. But I think the impact that Turnstile have had on this kind of music, the way that they've been able to transcend. I mean, as we talked about in our recent Coachella episode, they're literally 5 down from the headliner, Sabrina Carpenter, this year, this upcoming edition of 2026. Like they're only behind like the XX, Nine Inch Nails, and Disclosure. I mean, they're the biggest band this genre has seen since this stuff was on the radio, pretty much. And I feel like Mystery could have been there. I mean, I don't know. That's not my favorite Turnstile song, but judging by the types of songs that make these lists, I think Turnstile deserves some representation. And I think I mentioned Sleater-Kinney was on the albums list, but I thought Modern Girl would have been a good inclusion for the songs list. And then one rap song on my list, I think it should have had Why by Jadakiss. I was thinking, so Pitchfork just did their list of the 100 greatest rap albums of all time, and there was no Jadakiss on that list. And I get that because, I mean, he may be top 5 dead or alive, but he doesn't really have like a really great album. But he's truly one of the best rappers of all time. And I feel like if you're doing a songs list, I think Why is kind of the perfect middle ground between why Jadakiss is such an incredible rapper and also pop appeal. So, I mean, there were definitely some cool raps on the list. I think some others that came to mind for me is I probably would have had A$AP Rocky's Fucking Problems or One Train, which like totally defines the generation of 2010s rap, I think. But yeah, I think that with these two big lists coming out at once, we're just not seeing enough Jadakiss love.
So I didn't make a list, but I do want to say a few more that just kind of stood out. Sufjan Stevens doesn't appear on the song list at all. Illinois is on the album list, but come on, like Chicago or 4th of July or Impossible Soul, any of those could have been on the song list. You already said Grizzly Bear. The National also didn't make the song list at all.
I was really surprised about the National. They did have High Violet on the album list, but like, I mean, the amount of National songs that feel like they could have easily been on this list, like they're like the opposite of a one-hit wonder.
I mean, LCD Sound System made the list, and the Rapture even made the list. The Rapture, who are on a current reunion tour, that actually Bill attended that show last night here in Brooklyn Steel, but with the Cribs opening, also not on the list. But Bill was quick to point out the Walkmans, the Rat was not on there. Hot Chip, nothing from Hot Chip, Over and Over could have been on there.
Yeah, and like the Rat and Over were, they were just as much part of that sort of like classic indie canon of the 2000s as a lot of the stuff that did make the list. I mean, maybe more so than some of the stuff that did. And like Animal Collective's My Girls kind of felt like a glaring omission.
No Animal Collective at all.
No Queens of the Stone Age. No Tame Impala. Block Party. DANCE by Justice. There was no Feist.
Tame Impala was surprising, especially if you're stereotyping Rolling Stone as putting big bands in there or putting big artists on there. Sorry. But Tame, who makes sure to point out that it is a solo project, actually, has 4 nights at Barclays Center coming up and beloved albums. So yeah, Tame was a little bit of a surprise. You said Feist, which is a great point. Broken Social Scene did make the list with a song that Emily Haynes sings on. And Feist actually made the album list earlier this year, but did not have a single song on the song list.
Yeah, which I think is interesting because, like, yes, she was in Broken Social Scene, but I mean, a song like 1, 2, 3, 4 or Mush a Boom or I Feel It All, way more like sort of omnipresent than anything by Broken Social Scene, and a different audience too. So
St. Vincent didn't actually make the list. She was on the albums list, but she sort of made the list because she's got a writing credit on one of the Taylor Swift songs that did make the list. You were just mentioning how two of the biggest artists billed at Coachella coming up are the XX and Turnstile. XX, like Turnstile, also did not make the song list.
and like I kind of thought we'd see some of the more recent like indie faves like Wet Leg Chaise Lounge, which I know I'm saying wrong, Alex G's Runner, on that sort of like punk and emo thing. Like I kind of thought we could maybe get like Taking Back Sunday or Thursday.
Yeah, Amanda was pointed out very quickly that she was surprised Thursday weren't on there. She also shout out her personal faves, Cassandra Jenkins and Self Esteem. She would have liked to see on there.
I was not surprised Thursday were not on there. I didn't expect it. I think it's sad that I didn't expect it because I guess Thursday just don't have the same cultural cachet as, you know, Two Door Cinema Club. But I thought AFI could have been on there. I kind of thought Snoop Dogg's Drop It Like It's Hot was a surefire bet. But yeah, I don't know. We could go on and on and on about the stuff that's not there. Should I kind of like should I read my top 10 real quick just in case, like, you know, to kind of recap this section?
Yeah, go for it.
So my 10 songs that I think really should have made Rolling Stone's list of the 250 greatest songs of the 21st century so far. Songs Ohia's Farewell Transmission, Joanna Newsom's Have One on Me, Hop Along's Tibetan Pop Stars, Deaf Heaven's Dream House, Joyce Manor's Constant Headache, Title Fight's Head in the Ceiling Fan, Turnstile's Mystery, Slipknot's Duality, Sleater-Kinney's Modern Girl, and Jadakiss' Why.
And Chat Pile's Why.
Top 10 songs named Why of the past 25 years.
Hey, come on, Chat Pile's Whys. There is a list. There is a version of this list that has
No,
that.
I agree with you. I agree.
So speaking of some of New York City's best rappers of all time and that Pitchfork list, what'd you think of Mobb Deep's The Infamous topping Pitchfork's best rap albums of all time list, which should be noted would not have been eligible for Rolling Stone's song list due to it coming out in the 90s.
Yes. That was so interesting, I thought. I was genuinely shocked. I mean, I really just kind of thought Illmatic would top the list. It did top Pitchfork's Reader's version of the list. And I mean, the thing is, I actually like The Infamous more than Illmatic. So I was not unhappy to see The Infamous at number 1. But I think Illmatic kind of invented album-oriented rap. Like I feel the way I feel about Illmatic topping a rap albums list every time is like the way I feel if like Pet Sounds or a Beatles record were to top a rock list. Like it's okay, I think, if it just is always that, because it kind of invented the form. But it's really interesting. I mean, I think in New York in the 90s, I don't think you would have, or no, hold on. Everyone has their own opinion, but I think the consensus would have been that The Infamous by Mobb Deep is not higher than Illmatic or Wu-Tang's 36 Chambers or Biggie's Ready to Die. Maybe not even than a Jay-Z album, but it is. And I think I like it more than Illmatic. But I do think Illmatic has like a stronger structure to it as an album. And Nas is, of course, on The Infamous, as is Ghostface Killah and Raekwon from Wu-Tang. So, but I think Mobb Deep's is a little bit more like a lot of good songs, and Illmatic is kind of more of like a capital A album. But it also is, those are some of the best rap songs ever. And I guess they do feel a little underrated because Nas headlines arenas, Wu-Tang Clan headlines arenas. I'm sure if Biggie was alive, he would headline arenas. Jay-Z is bigger than arenas. Mobb Deep is going on tour with Raekwon this year. They're playing the Infamous in full for its 30th, and Raekwon's playing Only Built for Cuban Links for its 30th, and that's at like the New York show's at Brooklyn Paramount. It's like a small theater compared to where a lot of these stars would play. So it's definitely an underrated pick.
Well, to be fair, Mobb Deep Prodigy did pass away a bunch of years ago.
Yeah, it is only half of Mobb Deep, but I think even if it was Prodigy, like I mean, you know, they're not going to be arena headliners, I don't think, in 20. But yeah, I mean, that was really, really interesting, I thought.
Well, what's a bigger hot take, that Mobb Deep at 1 while Nas is at 5, or Juvenile at 3 above Nas at 5?
Yeah, I mean, Juvenile was a hotter take. I like Juvenile. That was crazy. I think if by the end of the 90s, if you were like, oh, Juvenile definitely made a better record this decade than Nas, Biggie, Outkast, I think you'd get some weird looks. And look, like I saw some people try to like defend it as like, oh, the South still doesn't get any credit. Like, no, it's not about the South. Like, Outkast should have been higher than Juvenile. It's a great record. I thought that was a strange pick. Sorry, Pitchfork.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Mobb Deep have a new album coming out today.
Yes, the timing was perfect to put Mobb Deep kind of, because I do, you know, these lists are impactful. I mean, I remember, because like I'm reading them now being like, oh, I'm wondering what order you put a lot of records that I've heard. But like when you're young, these lists, this is like how you learn. And if you're like a teenager who's getting into rap and you've never heard the Infamous and you see it's number 1, you're probably listening to it. And I'm really curious what someone who's maybe a teenager who hasn't heard it would think of it, because it actually sounds a lot different than most rap today. Well, unless you're into the sort of Alchemist-centric scene, and we'll talk about him in a second. But, you know, if you're listening to like current mainstream rap, it doesn't really sound anything like the Infamous. And I would say the Infamous still has such an edge to it. It doesn't sound old. Like sometimes you listen to older music that's really influential and you're like, you know, it can sound a little bit like less edgy than like whatever you're into. I feel like the Infamous, like I've been listening to it a lot because again, Mobb Deep's new album is out. This list is, I've kind of just been like back on this Infamous kick, and I'm like, this is still like the hardest, darkest stuff. But anyway, as you said,
it doesn't sound, well, you said it doesn't sound like stuff now, which is, to be fair, I was surprised there weren't even more hot takes in that Pitchfork list, given their focus on a certain type of rap that's popular now lately.
Right. The sort of like, yes, it definitely sounds nothing like the kind of rap that they seem to
champion lately,
to really like. But there were definitely some takes that felt like Pitchfork being the current version of Pitchfork, doubling down on things like having Playboi Carti 1 slot higher than Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. I don't want anybody telling me that wasn't intentional. But yeah, so Mobb Deep's new record's out this week. It's called Infinite. It's the first album since Prodigy sadly passed away in 2017. Havoc, the other member of Mobb Deep, has put it together using posthumous verses recorded by Prodigy. Havoc produced almost all of it himself, so very classic Mobb Deep. And the only other producer on the record is The Alchemist, who has at this point like goes way back with Mobb Deep. So it really feels like, oh, and it has Nas, Ghostface, and Raekwon on it, just like The Infamous does. Frequent Mobb Deep collaborator Big Noid, who I believe is playing with them on the upcoming tour. He's on it. It all feels very, very respectful and carefully curated to be as close to a Mobb Deep album that Prodigy was able to be part of as possible. And I really appreciate that, given a lot of posthumous albums you can't say that about. So yeah, I don't know that it's like, you know, it's not, I don't know it's going to be as good as The Infamous. I mean, I do know that it isn't. But or as impactful or anything. Like I don't think Mobb Deep are about to have like their Clips moment, or like when A Tribe Called Quest kind of had that like reunion record moment. I don't know if that's going to happen. But I do like that with the tour of the Infamous, the Pitchfork slot, now this, Mobb Deep's in the air. Their music still sounds cutting edge. It feels like a really good time for this group, and I hope that they have some kind of moment this year. I hope they gain new listeners. Cool stuff.
Yeah, so what else is out this week?
Yeah, well, speaking of comeback, first time in a long time type albums, we have the first Black Eyes album in 21 years. It's called Hostile Design. It's on their longtime label of Discord. It's produced by Ian MacKaye, aka Ian MacKaye of Discord and Minor Threat and Fugazi, who produced the first two Black Eyes records as well. And it's like sonically like no time has passed since 2004. Double drummer craziness, total chaos, screaming, shouting, saxophone freakouts, but lyrically very much a response to the current gestures at everything. So a really cool record. I really like the Hannah Francis album. Speaking of Grizzly Bear, so Daniel Rossi from Grizzly Bear is on 2 songs on this album where he contributes a lot to. It's not just like a guest vocal. It's like, I think, instrumentation, arrangements. And I definitely think Grizzly Bear fans would like this album. Hannah has been compared. Her last album from last year was like a little bit of a breakthrough. She got comparisons to like folk singers like Joni Mitchell, Sandy Denny, Nick Drake. And now it's that, but it adds in this like prog indie side that is similar to Grizzly Bear, similar to Joanna Newsom. Really, really cool. And then the Antlers are back with a new record called Blight. I really like this band Weekend Friends. Their album Feels Like Hell is out. Jay Som has a new album that features both Haley Williams of Paramore and Jim Adkins of Jimmy Eat World, 2 of the only like 5 or 6 emo singers on the Rolling Stone list. So that's cool. If you are in a headbanging, moshing mood, you don't want to miss the New Testament, Sangazugabog, and Dead Heat. You can read about some of those in notable releases on BrooklynVegan.com. In Indie Basement, Bill talks about new records by Richard Ashcroft of The Verve, The Besnard Lakes, Holly Cook, and more. So yeah, it's a good week for new albums. Good week for songs. Joyce Manor announced their new album. Like, was just saying how Constant Headache should be one of the best songs of this century so far. And they have a new record coming out called I Used to Go to This Bar. It was produced by Brett Gurwitz, the founder of Epitaph Records, which Joyce Manor is signed to, and also a guitar player for Bad Religion. And Brett's definitely worked closely with the band over the years, but never like been the core producer on an album. So I think it's really cool to hear what they've done together. And so far, both songs have kind of been like not so punky. The last single was very like Smithsy, a little bit like almost like kind of a country-ish vibe. And this new song, Well, Whatever It Was, is like, I think Barry from Joyce Manor like said it was like something like the most Southern California song, and name dropped like Red Hot Chili Peppers and I forget what else he said, but it almost feels like it could be like one of those late 90s like California alt rock songs. And if you like Joyce Manor as much as I clearly do, then you may want to know that we have an exclusive frosty orange vinyl variant in our store, which is shop.brooklynvegan.com, and that's limited to 300 copies. The Format, whose singer Nate Roos did guest vocals on Joyce Manor's 2016 album Cody, announced their first album in 20 years. It's called Boycott Heaven. The first single, Holy Roller, is out. Megadeth shared the first single from what is going to be their final album. It's called Tipping Point. It sounds like Megadeth to me. Did you hear it?
I actually have not yet.
Well, next week you'll tell us what you think. An artist that a lot of us at BV are big fans of, Lande Hekt, announced a new album. It's called Lucky Now. The first single, Favorite Pair of Shoes, is like super catchy, kind of like OG 80s, early 90s style, like UK indie pop. Danger Mouse and Black Thought put out a new single. Apparently they have a second album coming out together. The first album came out in 2022, and it was first talked about in 2006. So don't hold your breath for this new follow-up, but do check out the new single Up. And Blonde Shell, who put out an album this year that we really like called If You Asked for a Picture, is releasing a companion called Another Picture. It includes covers of her songs by Conor Oberst of Bright Eyes, Samia, Folk Bitch Trio, and some new tracks, some features, including John Glacier, which I'm really curious to hear how that one sounds, and Gigi Perez, who's on the new single Arms. So yeah, that's about it for the new music that I can think of. What else happened this week, Dave?
One of the biggest stories of the week for sure. A lot of people are really surprised to hear Rush are back. They announced their first tour since 2015. They've already added more dates since the initial announcement, and just like the very next day. This will be the first tour since Neil Peart's 2020 death. It's happening in 2026. They have also announced that they'll have Germany's Annika Niles, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, filling Neil's shoes on drums. She got her start on YouTube, has since won lots of drumming awards, and has toured as Jeff Beck's drummer. And I'm sure if she is now a member of Rush, she must be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, huge shoes to fill, but I'm sure we can trust that Rush have made a good decision. And I never saw. Have you seen Rush?
I never did. I regret it.
I've never seen them. I'm bummed that I'll never see him with Neil. But when this was, it's funny because just this past weekend I was having a conversation with a friend, and he asked me like, "Who's like number one on your bucket list of bands that you haven't seen that you could see, like not like, you know, Nirvana kind of thing?" And a day later, Rush announced a tour. So I think that might be my answer now. I think the possibility of seeing Rush could be my my number one thing I've never done and would like to do.
This next story very well may be your number two, because Bob Mould's long broken up 90s band Sugar have launched new social media accounts and clearly have something up their sleeves.
I definitely hope that you're right, that they do announce something that makes this possible to be my number two.
In 2026, are you going to be able to see Rush, Sugar, and Sonic Youth?
Wait, Sugar Rush?
Oh.
Yeah.
And for our West Coast friends, speaking of Sugar Rushes, for our West Coast friends and people who like memes, the Smashing Pumpkins have announced their own Erewhon smoothie called OG Goth. I think, you know, Erewhon, it's a thing. In case you haven't been keeping up, Dua Lipa has been covering a different song at every stop of her current tour, sometimes with the actual artist she's covering. She was in LA this week, where she brought out Gwen Stefani for No Doubt's Don't Speak and Lionel Richie for All Night Long. She's also covered Fleetwood Mac's The Chain, Mamas and Papas California Dreamin', and much more. Hey, like Andrew said earlier, go click on shop.brooklynvegan.com. We still have copies of that new Modern Baseball reissue, the new Joyce Manor album we just mentioned. We actually had exclusive variants of that Megadeth, but they are now sold out. Let's see. I hear a rumor we may be getting some more soon. Maybe not, not those exact variants, but yeah, shop.brooklynvegan.com. Of course, much more news and reviews and all that at brooklynvegan.com every day of the week. And hey, subscribe to this podcast, BV Weekly, and go check out our other podcast, the Brooklyn Vegan BV Interview Podcast, which we just dropped a new episode with, help me out, Kate LeBon. New interview with Bill about her new record and all the stuff she's producing and all that. Until next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Dave and I will be back every Friday morning with new episodes of BV Weekly. And in between the episodes, you can always get much more from us at brooklynvegan.com, on all of our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can pick up records from us at shop.brooklynvegan.com. And if you like what you hear, tell your friends about us, subscribe to the show, give us a good rating. All that little stuff goes a really long way. It really helps us a lot, and we really appreciate it. So until then, thank you again, and see you next time.